Hey, Jasmine Turner and Anchor Ministry, North Atlanta Anchor Ministry. I wanted to talk to you today. By the way, my name is Ken Snell. I'm one of the ministers at North Atlanta Church of Christ. I've been around a long time, 28 years, in fact. And so, today I just wanted to talk to you about one of my favorite Bible stories. It was a favorite Bible story when I was a child, and I reread it again. We're in the middle of this, wow, coronavirus stuff. And who knows when that's going to end. And it's, causing us to have to keep distance from each other. And I just wanted to share this passage with you. It seems sometimes when we come up against something like coronavirus, uh, it's not the only struggle we have in our life, really. We have other struggles. For me, it's just a struggle to try to be godly, try to think the way, Jesus wants me to think, and to not think, selfishly. And, everybody has their own, problems and issues and challenges and mountains to climb, I guess. I know for a lot of you, it's addiction. It's like it overtook me, and wow, I just needed help to get out of it. I needed somebody to, point me in the right direction. And man, I want to just recommend to you the Anchor Ministry and the mentors and Jasmine, who are just trying to be a resource and help you. And I pray for you. I pray for you as you're going through this and in your recovery centers, just to know there's some people on your side. I want you to know that, because sometimes life just seems, insurmountable, like it's overwhelming, right? But I had this favorite Bible story, and I reread it again just in light of all the coronavirus stuff and all the challenges we face. And it's actually a story from 1 Samuel 17, and you'll know the story. You know it well, but maybe you just never thought about it in terms of, the challenges you face right now. But it's a story about, it says, the Philistines now mustered their army for battle and camped between Sukkah in Judah and Azekah in Ephesdammim. I don't know how to pronounce those things. So anyway, this army is of the Philistines. Those are the enemies of God, and they're putting their army together and getting ready to fight. And the army of God is led by a king named Saul. And so Saul decided he better gather his Israelite troops together near the valley of Elah. So the Philistines and the Israelites face down. I don't know if you've ever just tried to face down an enemy, but if you're in recovery from addiction, then you're just facing down an enemy. That's what you're doing. And I've heard our president say, hey, this, what we're in with coronavirus is like war times. So this made me think of this story. So there, the Israelites, God's army, and the Philistines, the enemies of God, are camped on each side of this valley, and they're kind of looking across the valley at each other, and they're on opposite hills. And so then, from the enemies of God, the Philistines, this big giant Goliath steps out, and he's the champion. He's like almost 10 feet tall, over 9 feet tall, and he's wearing a bronze helmet. I mean, goodness, even his sword, his spear that he uses, the head of it, just the head of it, is like a shot put. It weighs 15 pounds. And so he's this huge character, and all of his coat of armor weighs 125 pounds. So he's got a javelin, he's got the shaft of his spear is heavy and thick, and I mean he's intimidating. That he would be as intimidating, to the Israelite army as like Jasmine would be to me on the basketball court, right? That would be pretty intimidating to have to go up against her, right? She'd probably dunk over me or something. But so so he's got an armor bearer who carries, his armor, and so he stands out on his hillside, the enemies of God hillside, and he shouts across at the Israelites, and he says, why are you all coming out to fight? I am the Philistine champion. He says, but you're just servants of Saul. So he says, just choose one man. Let's not involve our armies. Just choose one man, come and fight me, and then whoever wins, you know, everybody will serve the other. The other. Whoever wins will, get all these servants. He says, just choose one man. If he kills me, then we will be your slaves. But if I kill him, then you'll be my slaves. So he goes on to say, I defy the armies of Israel today. Send me a man who will fight me. When Saul and the Israelites look over at this 10-foot tall guy, this, giant, they're terrified and deeply shaken. So this is the problem. It goes on for days. Doesn't just happen once. It's like every morning they wake up, get up, and they stand on the side of their hillside, armies of God led by Saul, and here's this giant on the other hillside shouting across at them, taunting them. If he'd played for the NFL and been taunting like that, he would have gotten a flag. But he's taunting. So enter someone else into the scene. Everybody's kind of frozen in fear. So they need somebody else to come on the scene. Maybe you've had a time in your life where you just needed somebody else to come into the scene and change the dynamic somewhat. So David, you all know David, he's the son of Jesse, and some of his brothers are in the Israelite army, the armies of God, and they're just as afraid as everyone else. But David's father, he's this young man who keeps sheep. He's a sheep herder, and his dad sends him to the army because the way it worked was if you had soldiers off fighting, you had to send them food. So David comes, and he's going to be the caterer for his brothers and bring them food from home, and encourage them with some good food. So David shows up at the battleground, and he finds all of the armies of God afraid, and he, this has been going on for 40 days, and every morning and every evening. And so when Jesse, sends David out to the battlefield, David comes on this scene, and he's puzzled by it. And as he's talking with his brothers, he sees this giant who comes out and starts barking, send somebody to fight me. David hears this taunt, and he sees the army of God kind of running away in fright, and the men ask, have you seen this giant? And he comes out every day and defies us, and the king offered a huge reward to anyone who kills him, and he'll give that man one of his daughters for a wife, and the man's entire family will be exempted from paying taxes. David thinks, well, that's a pretty good deal. So he asks the soldiers, what's a man going to get for killing this Philistine and ending his defiance? Who is this pagan Philistine, anyway, that he should defy the armies of the living God? These men said, well, yeah, he's going to be rewarded, whoever fights him. But then David's brothers get involved, and they say, what are you doing here? You're just trying to, you go back to your sheep. You can take care of your sheep, but you can't, you can't take care of this problem. This is too big a problem, and you're just trying to, you just want to see what's going on. You just want to see us scared, And David says, I just asked a question. He walked over to some others, and then finally David's question about going to fight this man was reported to King Saul. So Saul sends for him, because here's somebody He hadn't had any other volunteers. So, and uh, and David told Saul this. He said, "Don't worry about this Philistine. I'll go fight him." Now David's a young man. Saul says, "Don't be ridiculous. There's no way you can fight this Philistine and possibly win. You're only a boy, and he's been a man of war since his youth." But David persisted, and here's what 1 Samuel 17, verse 34 says: "I have been taking care of my father's sheep and goats. When a lion or a bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. If the animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. I've done this to both lions and bears, and I'll do it to this pagan Philistine too, for he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear will rescue me from this Philistine." Saul finally consents and says, "All right, here, I'll give you my armor. May the Lord be with you." David tries on the armor of Saul. Saul's a big man too, and it just doesn't fit. And David says, this doesn't work for me. He says, "All I need is my sling, and I'll just pick up some stones from the brook." And so he does that, picks up 5 smooth stones, and then armed with just his shepherd's staff and a sling, he starts across the valley to fight Goliath. So Goliath walks out, he sneers, and he's like, who is this dog, this young boy coming at me with a stick? He says, "Come over here, I'll give your flesh to the birds." And so David says, "You come to me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Today, the Lord will conquer you, and I will kill you and cut off your head, and then I will give the dead bodies of your men to the birds and wild animals, and the whole world will know there is a God in Israel. And everyone assembled here will know that the Lord rescues his people, but not with sword and spear. This is the Lord's battle, and he will give you to us." So as Goliath moves to attack, you all know the end of the story. David puts one of those stones in his sling, and he slings it. And it goes up, 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 and hits Goliath right in the head. And he falls over dead. David has won the great victory that everybody else was afraid to fight. And so I've been thinking about this story, and I've been thinking about the challenge of coronavirus. Wow, how do you win against an enemy like that? Or addiction, that's an enemy. It's an enemy that really Satan has devised against us. He's the enemy of God, and he's brought this addiction into our lives to battle. And how do you win? Well, sometimes it's not with sword and spear. It's with the power of the God of heaven's armies. That is the God who can help us win the victory. So I've been thinking about this story. I've been thinking about this challenge. And I've been thinking about the challenge that you may be in right now. Maybe coronavirus is like the last thing on your mind because you're in a battle, just daily battle. Just to wake up every day and take one more day and one more step in the right direction. And I think this story can help us. This story says we're not alone. Number one, maybe you're you've got a counselor at your facility where you're staying, if you're in a facility, or somebody, a sponsor or a mentor, or somebody who's kind of come in onto the scene like David came onto the scene, and they're not wearied by what you've been through. They're just there to help. They're just there to be an encouragement. Maybe it's the director of your program. Maybe it's somebody who's your sponsor. Maybe it's a mentor from the church or Jasmine. She just shows up in the scene, and there's a different energy already. And she's willing to fight, but guess what? She has some tools. Those people, just like David, have some tools. David's tool was really faith in God, and what he knew how to use, which was those stones and his sling. And sometimes you just need somebody to show up with some tools, some faith, who says to you, you know what? You can do it. I've been to some off the chain meetings, and I know one of the things you always say is, you can make it. Keep on hanging in there because you can make it. And I think this story, helps us realize that we can make it. We can make it with the help of God and with the help of people who are going to help us get connected to God. I love this story, and I love the fact that David was not willing to let anyone defy God. And he took it as defiance to God, what Goliath was saying. Goliath kept taunting the Israelites. And I want you to say to yourself, hey, whatever is being thrown at me is not just my addiction to overcome. It is God. This is against God because God created you. God made you in his image. He loves you more than you love yourself, more than you can even know. And God is saying, wow, I'll fight for you. I'll fight that addiction. I'll fight that coronavirus. I'll fight for you. Just trust me. Stay in touch with me. Stay connected to me. Stay connected to people who will help you stay connected to me, who will keep challenging you, who will keep saying, some of you may be as discouraged as those Israelite soldiers, as David's brothers were, just discouraged because it's gone on for a long time. Maybe it's not just 40 days of Goliath, it's maybe 4 years. And you just have gotten weary. And I'm here to tell you today that God wants to fight for you. God will make you successful. You simply keep inviting him in and welcoming him into the fight. You're not in it alone. You are in it with the grace and power and the army of the heaven's army, the army of the angels are with you in this fight, and you can overcome. I love you. Thank you for letting me share this story. I'm so proud of all that you are doing to make positive steps toward God and toward a new life, a new way of life, a new freedom that God is going to give you. God bless you, and I look forward to seeing you when we can all be back together. I can't wait for that day. It's going to be a glorious day where we're all together in God's house, praising God. Until then, keep the faith, and you can make it. Take care. Bye.